Okay. So looks like we got 4 of you on Zoom. We don't have any other subcommittee members in the room except for Patrick and I right now. Hopefully Laura Hoberg will join us here soon. And then a few more people may pop into Zoom eventually. But we're going to get started here. Just a reminder, my name is Alicia Lano. I'm the Outdoor Recreation Coordinator, and then Patrick Menton is the Recreation Director for Facilities here at Park Rec. So, Trisha, I think you weren't at the last meeting, so do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, I'm Trisha Carr. I missed the previous meeting. I apologize. I am here today, excited to learn more about the work of the subcommittee. I teach in the psychology program at Winona State.
Thanks, Trisha. All right, so as we mentioned to you in that email, we're just gonna kind of quick introduce our plans that we have in place already, and then kind of dive deeper into that Park and Rec comprehensive plan that we sent to you. So just a quick refresher, if you haven't already seen these, the Park and Recreation Department has a Sugarloaf Bluff Conservation and Recreation Area Master Plan, which we created in 2016. So if you do ever want to review that, that is on our website. And then in 2017, it's worth mentioning that the city did a complete streets policy and pedestrian and bicycle plan. So we're not going to talk about that plan in this subcommittee because the transportation subcommittee is more talking about that plan, but it is worth mentioning that the city does have that plan. It was created in 2017. And then,
do they have any Parks and Rec people involved in that directly? Because
in that transportation subcommittee.
yeah, relative to the bicycling, because it seems like like I said last time around, they need someone who actually bikes.
Yeah.
To help them determine things like, is it reasonable to ask people to use this as the bike thoroughfare?
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure who's on that subcommittee. Patrick, do you know? Okay. I'm not sure if I know no one from the Park and Rec Department is on that subcommittee, but there may be some bicycle enthusiasts on that subcommittee. I'm not sure who's a part of that one. So we can get that answer for you, Eric, and get back to you on that one. But yeah, that's more of a streets thing and transportation item. So obviously we can talk about paths and trails from a recreation standpoint, but as far as transportation go, that will stay in the transportation subcommittee.
Just a quick question, just overviewing, do you know if that includes updating Broadway to do the road diet like they had previously turned down?
In that plan, in the master plan?
Yes.
I am not 100% sure. I can find that answer for you though, if you'd like. I it's quite a thick plan. So I can look through that and see what they had planned for Broadway and that. But yeah, anything that you say to us, we'll pass on, we'll probably send on to the transportation subcommittee. That will come from us. So just a heads up there. And then lastly, we had our comp plan in 2018, which we're going to talk about. But then lastly, we have our Bluffs Traverse master plan, which was also created in 2018. So once we started, the Park and Rec Department created that comprehensive plan, we kind of saw a need for that entire Bluffs area to be expanded, and it deserved its own master plan. So in that same year, we also created that Bluffs Traverse master plan, which is also on our website if you care to look at it. But today we really want to focus on the Park Rec master plan. And I sent you chapter 2, which is the vision, principles, and goals of that master plan. So hopefully you all had a chance to look over that, because we're going to really dive deep into that today. So the overall Winona comprehensive plan will either affirm what's already written into this. We're not going to rewrite it. And in the comprehensive plan, it'll just mention that Park and Rec already has a master plan. We agree with what's already written in that. So today we want to look at these and decide whether these goals and objectives that are already written into this master plan are things that we want to keep, or if there's something that is worth changing and updating. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So without further ado, I am going to share my screen with that, and we're going to go through the goals and objectives of the current plan. Okay. So I'm not going to read every single objective in here, but because there's quite a few goals written in here. So starting off with goal number 1 there. Sorry, just getting to that page. Provide a connected, accessible, and recognizable network of park and recreation facilities that welcomes all ages and abilities. So your job as a subcommittee is to talk about this particular goal. Do we want to keep it as is? Does it need to be changed, updated? We can kind of look through all of those sub items below it and talk about those in detail as well. So this is up for open discussion on this one.
So I guess I'm not too familiar with the plans for 131 and 132 as it regards to marketing those things heavily, but I definitely think that was a highlight of this goal, and like the whole idea of creating the iconic destinations. Do you guys know off the top of your head anything about like what the marketing plans are for, like, for instance, Holzinger or Levy?
Yeah, so for the Bluffs Traverse, there is a signage plan in place, and there is written a little bit of a marketing plan in that master plan as well. So, and I can pull that up as well. I always forget to do this. It is written into that Bluffs Traverse master plan.
Sure.
Yeah.
I just think that was definitely like a highlight of this goal for sure. That, yeah, like I said, the idea of creating those into iconic destinations and marketing them heavily is a great idea. And then 1.7 with the comprehensive sign package, I know you mentioned already, but that's one thing that I know we mentioned in the first meeting as well, is something that should be a big focus. So I didn't necessarily think that I thought anything was glowingly unnecessary in this goal or anything like that.
Okay.
To echo what Eric's mentioned about the having bikers input on biking lanes, on the other side of that, you need someone who requires accessibility to be included in your accessibility, because ADA standards are minimum. It means it doesn't actually make it accessible for everybody.
Okay, so you'd like to add that to goal number 1?
Yeah, so making sure that no matter what it is, if it's bicycles, if it's hiking or accessibility, that includes somebody who has that lived experience to like review the plans.
Okay, so regarding the goals and objectives that are written under this, what would you like to change about this? Because we have that written into, it looks like 1.4, support trail accessibility through the identification of easily accessible routes. Is there anything you'd like to change about that or update this?
How might you state that? To include individuals or including individuals with access needs. How would you state that you need someone to verify that you're on the right track? And that goes for the pedestrian and bicycle plans too. Or should we
Reaching
say
out
that,
to the user groups.
yeah,
Okay, so that sounds like, to me, more like a strategy. And not necessarily the goals and objectives that would be written into the master plan.
so then the goal would be to, how would you say it? The goal would be to ensure that they are fully accessible.
Would it be wise to specify that, so something like in line with ADA guidelines and beyond, or further? Just Amber, because you kind of said that's a minimum. Do we need to be specific about what that accessibility is going to be with some sort of documentation by saying ADA?
I mean, yeah, like ADA is the minimum standard, so ADA isn't accessible enough if you truly want to be accessible.
So I guess then my question is, do we need to phrase that specifically here?
It seems like something that could fit under goal 3 or goal 6, which are about like partnerships and getting input on how this plan is executed. Like goal 6 is making well-informed decisions. So I think that if accessibility is a major plan of this goal, then that should be part of goal 6, maybe. What bothers me about goal 1 a little bit, sorry, I'm Nikki. I wasn't here at the first meeting because it conflicted with my work schedule, but there's a lot going on in goal 1, like connectivity, accessibility, and being recognizable to me are really distinct things. And I feel like each of them gets a little watered down by being under one goal. This is just my 2 cents. 1.3.1 and 1.3.2, those are the 2 things I see here that connect to being recognizable. And that's kind of the focus of goal 4. So I was a little confused why they were here in goal 1 as well.
Okay, yeah, so you'd like to see goal number 1 separated out a bit more and, yep, explain more.
I think since accessibility is one of the key foundational principles, it should have its own goal, maybe.
It's a good idea.
I concur with that thought.
Okay. Excellent. Okay, that's great feedback.
And I had a side question about the complete streets policy and pedestrian and bicycle plan. It says implement components. Which components? It seems really quite vague.
Yes, that is quite vague, so we can expand on that. Yeah, okay, so I'm just writing that note down, Eric, expand on which components. It probably means the entire thing, but we can make that more clear too.
And I think that's pretty common, especially this comprehensive plan in the citywide comprehensive plan. Like the citywide comprehensive plan will say implement park comp plan components too. So that's not too uncommon that they'll just kind of slot in, this plan exists, implement everything, basically.
Yeah, it's vague,
Okay.
vague on purpose. Yeah.
I'm just used to vague on purpose, me being the wiggle room that it people use to do what they want instead of what they promised.
Okay. All right, anything else in that goal number 1 that you'd like to see changed or updated or moved around? Let's give you a second to read it. All right, sounds like everyone's pretty good with that goal number 1. What I got from that is that accessibility should definitely be its own goal and potentially the other items in that goal as well. That was kind of the main thing we got out of that one. All right, so moving on to goal number 2. Sorry, I'm trying to make this so you can see as much as you can. There we go. This one has a lot. All right, goal number 2, follow government environmental regulations while being mindful of best practices.
And so for scenarios like this, if there were a link to what the best practices are, quote unquote, for Minnesota DNR trail planning design, whatever best practices guidelines, excuse me. I'd like to know what those are. Is that the search term to find that out, or
Yes, that is.
I imagine there's oodles of best practices or guidelines.
Yep, for a lot of the times we have to follow what the state says about trail work. So that is the book and the guidelines for trail planning and design.
So
Just-
there's set standards for trail slope, pitch, width, items like that. And so those are standards that we wouldn't look to reconfigure. We would rely on that current plan for implementation. But to that point too, looking at the waterfowl management plan, I mean, I'm looking under the goals with the check boxes, and some of these have already been attempted and found not to work. The testing, the predator decoys, I mean, there's been some attempts to do that with varying degrees of success. I mean, I think some of these plans do need to be reflected on a little bit more, see what's in a similar manner of what we're doing today with this, do that with some of these other plans and just see where they're at, and then what we can bring into the current plan.
Do you know what 2.11, if that's referring to anything specific? I found that one felt like it stood out a little bit, and maybe might belong somewhere else, but maybe it's referring to something specific that might be appropriate right here.
Yeah, I kind of look at that one as the educational programming and opportunities could be like currently public schools will do some different types of ecology, environmental work down at the lake, educational opportunities such as water testing, and then the for informational signage, for example. We've been regularly looking at different signage and adding enhanced language such as with pollinators or invasive water species on boat removal. So looking to enhance the signage system within the parks. But there's been some other informational signage that have been up recently. And some need to probably be added to, but like at Holzinger Lodge, there was those, if you've seen those boot scraping areas where you can scrape the invasive seeds off your feet, there's some informational signage that go along with that.
Okay, I see. That makes sense.
So to John, to your point, maybe that one is a little vague as how it pertains to environmental regulations. So just
Yeah.
programming and signage. So that might be one that maybe could use a little, like, make it less vague.
Yeah, I think, you know, sorry, I forget, your name, what, you were saying, it makes sense how it refers to this goal. But yeah, when I just first read it, I thought that maybe, it seemed more general and didn't maybe belong in goal 2, but that does make sense to be there. So if you could point out like some of those specifics and how it refers to directly government environmental regulations, that makes sense.
I'm Laura, sorry, I was a little late, but I
That's
see.
good.
You might have mentioned this in your first meeting that I missed, but I was curious, under the balancing waterfowl and park users, the numbers of 25 geese and 25 ducks, was that determined for any specific calculation or regulation?
I don't know that it was for any regulation. It was part of an ongoing study that the sustainability coordinator that has been working on, but it doesn't quite seem fitting to have such specific numbers if it's not tied to a regulation. So that's something that should get fact checked.
So it
Yeah,
really should be assessed, because it looks like the source is Lake Winona Waterfowl Management Framework. So we should probably make sure that it reflects that framework still currently.
Yeah, that did seem a bit random. And I don't know exactly, you know, I'm not an expert in population control, but it doesn't seem super attainable either.
Right.
Yeah, it's probably more than 25 out there.
Yeah,
Just guessing.
25 per flock, perhaps.
Hey.
Gaggle. I had a question on the incorporate environmental best practices. Is that like also stating that we're going to get the community involved in adding pollinator gardens or rain gardens in their own yards? Or does that belong somewhere else?
Is that number 2.3, Amber?
Yeah.
I don't read that as a personal property issue, but this would be more that when we're looking at installing, say, a new play structure, Madison Playscape, that we take into account some new types of surfacing, such as permeable paved surfacing, something that the water can move through. How I just look at how does the water move in these park systems? Is there a way to catch it, filter it with the bioswale, and then send it down to the down into the ground? So just not looking at a bigger picture, then let's not just put a playground here. Let's look at how this playground is affects the local the water, for example.
If people do want to start doing like pollinator gardens and such things locally in their homes, there are grants that are, I think one of them is maybe still giving grants even this year. The Lawns to Legumes group. Is anyone familiar with that?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if they still have ones for this year, but I think they might be doing for next season, like the grants this season.
Yeah, so I just threw the link in there. Yeah, well, they did, but I was declined earlier in the year, but just recently was emailed that they did that there was money left over and they were doing a second round. And so just 2 weeks ago, I got notified of that, and I don't know if they have more additional than that, but I've got till November, and I don't think I have time.
I think I heard this was the last year, so you might be right at the end of it, Eric. I participated in it the first year. If it's relevant, I could also look into that too if we need more information.
And maybe this is an example of how 2.3 could tie into 2.11. Say we're We're putting in a playground, the same example, and we're gonna put a rain garden, a bioswale. Maybe we tie it into programming. And then the goal is to introduce this educational programming tied to the park project. So people can learn about how it works and then bring that home and reapply some of those techniques on their private property.
I like the individual initiatives under this goal. I just wonder if the goal title itself really captures what's being aimed towards here, since following government environmental regulations is kind of required. And that, is it really a goal to follow government environmental regulations? Maybe if we could word it to really get more at the heart of what I think these initiatives is already saying, which is we're trying to enhance the beneficial relationships between human and environment through our park system or something like that.
Yep. Agreed.
Any suggestions on how we could reword that goal? Like what would be more fitting to reflect the things within it?
I think that Nikki was right, like, use best practices and, or I guess, use governmental environmental regulations and best practices to create a better relationship between humans and nature, something to that. Or using, yeah.
It seems kind of like a lot of the subpoints of goal 2 are sort of like focus on X and focus on Y and focus on Z. So maybe if we were just like focus and enhance and educate and inform rather than like follow rigs.
To say focus, enhance, and educate, were those the three?
Yeah, something like that, I think. Yeah. Sorry, I'm recovering from COVID, so I can't think 2 seconds in the past.
No worries, it's recorded, so you don't have to. No worries.
Perfect.
Okay, any other comments on goal number 2?
It's 213, the last one.
Yeah. In case you all can't read that 213 there. It's- Okay. Everybody feels good about the rest of it. We're gonna move on to goal 3. Is everybody ready to move on?
Yep, sounds good.
Excellent. All right, goal 3. Establish, collaborate, and expand partnerships with state and federal agencies, local associations, nonprofits, businesses, and individuals to accomplish the Parks and Recreation vision.
So I like the idea of a volunteer coordinator. I like the idea of having the city be more of a coordinating factor for the volunteer groups. And if you could help them get a little bit better organized. Not calling anyone out.
This was like something we specifically mentioned in the first meeting though too, was organizing, having someone to facilitate groups, connect groups, get people to volunteer to maintain trails, etc., etc.
Whether or not this would relate, I like the idea of 3.4 to collaborate with nonprofits and other organizations, and perhaps through those collaborations we could work together for some of that volunteering and trail maintenance or whatnot. I also like that idea in terms of collaboration in another direction, to perhaps not reinvent the wheel or duplicate programming within the community, perhaps that might be taking place elsewhere, which would obviously require more of that communication, which would need to be organized.
Yeah, to 3.3 having some, I don't know, it is so like in my use case where when I'm up like clearing buckthorn, which we do even when we don't have extra city staff present, or adjusting trails. How do I identify myself as like, hi, I actually through this group I am a volunteer under their insurance, but they collaborate with the city of Winona. Like, is there just like a badge or like a maybe a safety vest that could identify not a local yokel, like wandering around with the hedge clippers like a maniac?
So yeah, with the Rec Alliance and the Winona Area Mountain Bikers, we have service agreements with both of those groups. And both of those groups are responsible for their volunteers. The city is not responsible for their volunteers. So it's up to the Rec Alliance and the Winona Area Mountain Bikers to provide that safety equipment for their volunteers. And they're covered under those groups' insurance, not the city's insurance.
Yeah, I'm just wanting to have a way to identify like visually that I'm actually supposed to be doing those things. Like I get, who's insuring us and, that how the agreement structure works. But like when people are on the trail and I'm, yanking stuff out of the trail or across it or something,
Sure.
how do they not just assume that I'm a crazy person?
So you'd like more support from the city for like an identifying t-shirt of some sort to say that you're a volunteer?
Sure, or maybe a high vis thing that says City Winona volunteer. Yeah, just so that people don't like. I don't want my actions to seem like an invitation for anybody to go out and build any trail anywhere.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it does make sense. Yep.
Okay.
A vest, like he mentioned, I think a nice yellow vest that says that would be great if they could just be accessible. Just have 20 vests so a group can pick them up, go do their work, bring them back.
Also, it feels more like legitimate and fulfilling as a volunteer to, get a little bit of something like that and, have the city of Winona on your vest,
And there's also a safety component too. So Eric's up there working with a weed whipper and trimming back branches, and somebody comes round in a corner on a mountain bike, they kind of could use a heads up that there's work going on. So possibly there's temporary signage that gets put up that there's currently trail work in progress. Trail is closed to go the other way.
Oh, like a nice fold out sign? That'd be
yeah,
great. I've been saying something like that for a while.
add it to the list. Yep. Yep, that'd be great. But we do exactly to what you said, Eric. We do have a problem with that where somebody will see some people up with weed whippers and they'll say, oh, that's great. I'm going to go get my weed whipper. And then they're off into somewhere that they shouldn't be weed whipping or cutting new trail or dropping trees that don't need to be dropped. That's, yeah,
Yeah, we
And
don't
then
want
it-
every social trail to become the main trail.
yep, exactly.
And then if it was just a set of equipment that was available, it's not a repeating cost. It's, you return it, it gets used. If that makes sense.
Yeah, and that could be a package that is handed out to the Rec Alliance. They've got 20 vests and whiteboard trail signs. They can write whatever on it. Wham gets the same kit. But something that we spend a little time to get the right items in there that fit your needs.
Yeah, I think that would improve safety and well, just clean it up, clean up the look of it because it doesn't always look awesome.
Yeah. Do you think we've, in some ways, accomplished a lot of goal number 3? I mean, Alicia mentioned that, you know, since this was written, we've added a Recreation Alliance agreement who's managing Sugarloaf. We've added the WHAM agreement who's managing the Bluffside Trails. We've got Healthy Lake Winona managing the waters. I mean, has goal 3 been accomplished to the point where we could rewrite it?
Or I guess to that point, is it maybe not necessarily of rewriting it, but maybe how do we identify that we've accomplished or at least worked on some of these things? Like, how do we recognize that some of these things are in place?
Adding the word continue to. And then it sounds like we have not yet done 3.3. So
Mhm.
that if you rewrite it, it needs to maintain that. If you wanted to add detail to 3.4 to specify which groups you do work with or groups that you need yet to reach out to. Because you listed off a set of groups that you have worked with. Are there groups beyond that you haven't reached out to yet?
Yeah, I'm sure, and that might be a more of an internal component of it, where we would list different potential groups, whereas we could put in there the groups that we do have active agreements with within the comprehensive plan, and then internally have like a list of potential partners. Mhm.
I'm just, if that's what you want to do is acknowledge what you have done, that would be a good place to put it.
Yeah, I definitely think that there's still, I don't know, similar to our first meeting, where I think a number of people agreed that there's a few niche groups that have some similar, interests in, but not enough to be actively involved in one another. If somebody could take the umbrella rule to like help coordinate them together a little bit and get some cross pollination and possibly it's tough for me as a active member of the Rec Alliance volunteering community. I don't really know what WHAM is doing, I'm sure they're doing stuff probably, but I have no idea, and I can only really speak to like the one niche thing, and all of that is filtered through the hierarchy of Rec Alliance, and the communication isn't always really awesome via that mechanism. And there might be ways that maybe we could all coordinate together. I'm not sure, but that's not obvious to me at the level I'm at.
Do any of you see any gaps? You know, we're talking right now a lot about the trails and the climbing and Sugarloaf. Are there any gaps in our ecosystem here that aren't seeing the partnerships, the collaboration?
Well, do we have partnerships with state and federal agencies? It seems like they're kind of slow walking some of our stuff. Do we need to like go stand in their offices and like poke the, like, switch the light switch on and off a few times or something.
Maybe. I also think it's important to highlight that although we talk a lot about outdoor recreation, this comprehensive plan is for the entire Parks and Rec services. So also considering that we have volunteers that are at the Friendship Center or at East Rec too, and making sure that we have that indicated in the plan, I think is important so that we don't lose that or that it gets covered up by outdoor recreation focus.
I agree with Laura. I was gonna mention that it seems like a lot of the partnerships right now are recreation focused and maybe there aren't enough yet with the other aspects of the system.
And specific to East Rec, as far as the CIP and all of that stuff, and you knew this was going to come up, but is there somebody from Parks and Rec that is advocating on behalf of the East Rec Center in this
In the conversations.
safety center?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So I'm the director of services for Parks and Rec. So myself, and then we have a coordinator in that position. So we are advocating for that space, that space, regardless of anything else, it does need investment, it does need upgrades, it does need commitment from the city and from the department to that space. So myself and that coordinator absolutely are advocating on behalf of that space and the users and the programs that need to be able to be supported. And need to be supported in a way that's best for the community and ensure that those services continue and are expanded and are invested in.
I would say most park rec staff are advocates for that.
Oh, sure. I just want to make sure that, so, we're not hearing their voice in the city planning system. And it seems absent from what we're being told. We're hearing, Chad Ubel's trying to like claim that, oh, well, it's our plan, but it's not really our plan. Well, it's clearly our plan, but we're not hearing a lot of support for like how the current services and the expansion or whatever. How's that going to happen in this plan? We know a lot about, break rooms and workout rooms. I don't hear any details about how the East Rec Center services are going to be supported. So I don't know if we could poke at Chad a little bit and help him communicate that to us so that we understand.
Yeah, I think the part that's tricky with that is, before the public safety building concept was initiated, we had been working on that community center concept. So we really had all these really beautiful detailed plans and conversations about what program rooms looked like and how windows looked and what sort of spaces we needed. And now so we still have those plans. So we kind of know what the original community center concept, which is, like Alicia said, we're all advocating for that community center concept. But there are no plans because they're not moving forward in that way yet with the current concept because council hasn't officially decided that that's the concept they want to go with. So we don't have kind of detailed, like Eric, you're kind of mentioning, we don't have details of what rooms will look like. They have that very rough sketch of the 3 component piece. And I think it's important to point out that it's so rough that there aren't even bathrooms included in the community center in that concept. So until there's any official decision made, we don't have a whole lot of detail yet. But if regardless of whatever the decision is, we would have to involve community input for those spaces and what that would look like and have a lot of discussions as well, getting communication from user groups, both from the East Rec and from the Friendship Center.
So along the lines in here, is there, regardless of the site, whether it's updating East End Rec Center, which is the most logical and the most work has been put into that, or something else, is there plans to have a community center that supports what the East End Rec Center does and expands on it, and the Friendship Center and what it does and expands on it? Is there a goal for that?
Yeah, I would say that is the ultimate goal, Amber, that it has to support the East Rec users, the East Rec patrons, it has to support the Friendship Center users and patrons, and it has to expand on it. That is, yeah, absolutely, Amber, that's the goal.
I think, oh, sorry,
No,
go
no,
ahead. I think to expand on what's been said here, when I was reading this plan, I was of course thinking about the East End Rec too. And I think what was interesting to me is that there's a lot of language in this plan that talks about preserving the longevity of park resources. And it's a little disturbing to me that the East End Rec was ever even an option to lose that space for something other than Parks and Rec resources. And it seems to go against this plan, to be honest.
It doesn't just go against this plan, it goes against the Engage Winona work that they did 2-3 years ago when taking down the rec center wasn't even a thought in the air. It was a highlight mentioned by East Enders. And then I don't know if you're aware, but the secondary location they suggested was Sinclair Park, which also is contradictory to preserving our parks and rec.
Also contradictory to the prior long-range plans.
So I'm gonna kind of bring us back to on topic here. Sorry I know this is all a great conversation that everybody wants to talk about the Easter egg and the community center. But for the sake of time, because if we don't get this done, we're gonna have to keep on having meetings.
I
So
can bring it back to the plan to something concrete if it helps.
that would be great.
So maybe something that needs to be added to this plan is something about equity of park resources
Okay.
and preserving park resources in places where, for instance, if the East End Rec is lost, the keystone park resource on the East End, which is, mainly low-income families, is going to be gone. So something in this plan about equity on top of accessibility. I think accessibility seems to be narrowly defined in this plan as ADA. If we have something about equity, that would be broader.
I think that's
That's
a good
great.
point, Nikki. And then also when we kind of, because I think we're going to come across some of those things later on in the plan. And I think it might be important for us to really define, Eric, you kind of mentioned that, like really define what this point is instead of just having it be very broad and vague. So I think that's a good thing to keep in mind as we keep going.
Yeah, the next meeting, it would be great to dive into like, what does equity mean? How are we gonna accomplish those things? So yeah, that could definitely be its own new goal as long as we all agree upon that.
Well,
Okay,
can we expand accessibility to incorporate equity? I mean, if we want to do a separate, that's reasonable too, but I see accessibility as generational slash LGBTQ, low income. It's
Yeah, more than just ramped entrances.
yeah,
Yeah, it's
definitely.
a very broad thing.
So goal 8 does, talk about ensure a quality series of programs that are available to all, and the evaluation criteria include unmet needs, underserved communities, etc. However, that's, in relationship to programs. And I think that we also need similar verbiage to be associated with facilities, because programs that are, up on Garvin Heights that meet those needs aren't necessarily as accessible as programs that are both there and down at the East Rec or somewhere downtown.
Okay, so we have 9 more minutes. Does everyone feel pretty good about what we've discussed with goal 3? Are we ready to move on to goal 4?
yes, mostly, but in that statement, parks and recreation vision, should it be parks, facilities and recreation vision? So that there's a place, indoor places are
Well,
addressed by that?
That's, yeah, that's I think a good conversation to have. So our department that is, you know, the Friendship Center, Lake Lodge, Aquatic Center, Trail System is just referred to as Parks and Recreation. So we could get more defined, but I think that it's good because that's our department. And even though we tend to talk a lot about outdoor rec, especially with this, it's highlighted. I think it's good to keep using that, but keep emphasizing that Parks and Rec is also these programs and services and recreation centers.
Probably should have capitalized Parks and Recreation in there, so everyone knew it was. That's our department, yeah. All right, anybody else want to comment? All right, we'll get started on goal 4. I know we probably won't get through it, but at least we can kind of get started on it. And then next week we can keep going with the rest of the 4 goals. So goal 4 is communicate clearly with the community, visitors, and system partners.
I really like this goal and think that this definitely touches on some stuff that we were talking about in the first meeting. And I think 4.6 definitely needs to be reaffirmed and like definitely held on to. And that's another ties into some stuff that we were talking about with, like, you know, these ancillary groups that, you know, we want to yeah, like consolidated information source for people to know what's going on and get involved with groups that might not otherwise have loud voices or be very well known. So yeah, and I also didn't think that there was anything that was overly unnecessary in this. I think this one is really good.
Is this where a goal for advertising, marketing to this belongs?
Yeah, 4.5 is develop and create a marketing plan for Parks and Rec.
Yeah.
Can't read today.
That's why there's a group of us.
Yep.
Something that I'm seeing is missing on here is the transparency of some of the decision making. You know, where are we at with Madison Place space? Why,
That's a good point.
you know, so something.
That would be great.
When I look at the project side of it, that's more what I'm aligned with. The construction, renovation, facilities, projects. It would be really nice if there was a place where people could look and see and say, well, where are we at with the riverfront trail? Where are we at with, again, the Madison School? So people could look at it, the transparency there, there's a timeline, it's costs. It might not always be favorable. It might be, this is on hold because there's no funding for it. But then at least you know when you see it, and it keeps everybody on the same page.
Yeah, that would help a lot with communication and understanding who's doing what and how, and what is the timeline realistically.
Yeah, that you kind of just brought that point up earlier, Eric, that where is the community center? Like what is the plan? What are the details? So yeah, I think there are so many ongoing projects within Park and Rec. So having some sort of system of communicating where things are at, even if it is just on hold, I think would be helpful for the community.
You could incorporate a funding piece with that too. Like we are 70% funded for this project, or if you'd like to donate to this project, or this is on hold because we're waiting on a grant. I don't know.
Yeah, pending council approval, pending grant award, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, easy to get to donate here links. That'd be awesome.
On that transparency side, link to contact your Senate or your council person about said project, if it's pending council approval, perhaps.
Or I guess I shouldn't say approval, like council decision too, because those are very different.
Still opening that link
Yeah.
to the council, because going back to the East End rec, it was like done under the shadow. And then when it was brought to the surface was when there was some input. And it definitely wasn't the input that the council wanted.
And I think that it goes on with your accessibility point, Amber, having like, this is the project and this is, the information's all in the right place. So I can, if I want to talk to somebody about it, I can click this and have that information. I think that goes along with your accessibility comment. That people don't have to find things.
Transparency is what our government needs in all portions, parks and rec, whatever. Transparency is necessary for health of our government.
But preferably not the type of transparency where your, plans are on file in a basement disused lavatory with a sign that says "Beware of Tiger."
Yeah, or
You
just
know.
to a wall somewhere. That also sometimes happens. But that they're accessible. That last one, it kind of goes along with what we were talking about before, but I don't know if we need to expand on that to kind of ensure that people understand that we know that it's not just for the trail system, but that it's for all park rec services. And maybe that just comes with capitalizing parks and recreation. You know, it maybe, I don't know, but I think that's important. Again, I think that's so important. Maybe we just capitalize it and that'll do the trick.
Yeah. So do you all like the doodle poll? Does that work for everyone?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I think I like the doodle poll. I think that worked really well. So I think we'll do that again. So we'll send that out to you again for the next meeting. So we'll try again for about 2 weeks from now. So we'll send that out. So look for that email from us with that poll.
Alicia, I got one thing. So I
Sure.
just, one thing here before Alicia closes it. I did hear back on, we wanted to know if there were any avid cyclists on the transportation committee, and there are 4 people who are all strong cycling advocates on that transportation subcommittee. Just a quick answer to that first question yet.
Thanks, Patrick.
But it still though seems to me that if I don't know, like in this plan that we're working on, if one of the goals is work with other government agencies, internal should work too, and especially like goal 3, I think, was like connect all the different systems, all the different resources. Like a lot of that connecting goes on public streets, so it still seems to me like somebody who works in the city in Parks and Rec should have some input on this transportation committee, because not to devalue what we're doing here, I don't believe that our input is as strong as somebody internal advocating. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So 2 cents, whatever.
Yeah, yeah, and I think when that plan was created, I wasn't working with the city, but usually when a plan is created, they have multiple people from different departments look at those plans. So I can imagine that someone from Park and Rec had input on that particular plan. I don't know if you guys were around when that plan was created, but yeah. Yeah, but definitely whenever things like that are decided with streets, usually the recreation director from Park and Rec is involved with those decisions too. So we know that, and even in the Bluffs Traverse master plan, we mention that particular plan too, and how we want to link the city so people can get to our parks. So yeah. All right. So again, thank you all for being here today. Your time is invaluable with this. Please look out for that doodle poll. And then we'll also send out, you'll probably get another email from Luke Sims with the meeting invite and the Zoom information again. So again, appreciate all your time and have a great day.
One
Thank
super
you.
quick question.
Sure.
These are being recorded. Where are they posted?
Oh, good question. City of Winona YouTube channel, where you find the city council recordings as well.
Okay, is the previous one already up, or what's the turnaround time on that?
It is up already. Yeah. And so
Okay.
it just takes a couple days for us to get that up, but if you don't see it by Tuesday or Wednesday, just let us know and we'll get on that.
Cool. Thank you.
All right, thanks.